Network. He frequently lectures throughout the world on political science, public choice, civil society, and the moral, legal, and historical foundations of individual rights. He is also the author of many books and countless reviews and articles on politics and morality. Please welcome Dr. Tom Palmer.
Thank you so much. At all of the regional Liberty forums that we do, the Liberty Award is one of the real highlights. We have 3 finalists. Each one will be presenting their organization and their project. I'd like to begin by calling to the stage Mr. Khalid Ramizy of the Afghanistan Economic and Legal Studies Organization. Where is he?
Listening to Silk Road Online Radio. Rights, respect, responsibility. Silk Road Online Radio. If you want to know about scientific, legal, economic, social, and sports matters, be with Silk Road Online Radio.
Hello, everyone. So, I'm the luckiest one that I came 2 times in a day to the Stage of Facial Liberty Forum. So, there are many great works that we are doing in Afghanistan, but one of our projects that we are running is Silk Road Station or Silk Road Station Radio, station or radio programs. We are also producing radio and TV programs in Afghanistan for promotion of liberty, peace, and prosperity in the country. So to begin with, at first I would like to start with a short history of the Silk Road Station and how we established this station. A research that did my organization on 2010, we found it out that the best and the easiest way in Afghanistan to reach the community and to reach the people and to educate them the libertarian ideas is producing of radio and video programs, because half of the country are illiterate and they don't know writing and they cannot write and read. We decided to start our own initiatives on 2011 by producing of radio programs, and on that time we only produced the radio programs and our scholars talked regarding specific topics, and after the recording of the programs we distribute these programs to the local FM radios and also to the digital radios of the country for its broadcasting and reaching our message to our audience, to our people. But finally, on 2015, we came out with another sources. Our organization became whole and our organization became wider in the country. We decided to establish our own initiatives, to establish our own radio station. We have also the ownership and we have also everything that we can do that. Unfortunately, it is working. We can go forward. Yeah. Unfortunately, on 2015, we inaugurate officially the Silk Road Station with the support of Atlas Network and also Network for a Free Society, with the specific aim of Silk Road Station in Afghanistan is to promote liberty, is to educate every citizens of the country, their basic rights, and to bring positive change in Afghanistan people's lives. So what are the specific goals and aims or the programs of Silk Road Station in Afghanistan? The specific and the goal of Silk Road Station is to promote free society values in the country. Human rights, freedom of speech, good governance, and so on. Currently, the station has 39 radio programs. We have 39 radio programs, and all the programs are in national languages of the country, and also 20% of our programs are in English language, and we have a huge number of scholars with us. They are coming regularly to our station, and we are producing educational radio programs. The other thing is the other programs that we are producing is to change the traditional mentalities toward modernization in Afghanistan. Also, as Afghanistan is a traditional country, and you cannot do anything without the religion and also the traditional and the customs of the people, we are mostly focusing to tell the people the truth regarding compatibility of Islam with the free society values. And also, we are producing different programs to encourage Afghanistan women for their participation on social, political, and other activities in the country. We are producing many other awareness programs regarding the basic rights of the people, to which rights they have as a human in the society. Also, we are producing many other programs for Afghan families, to how we can change their lives toward a prosperous life and toward in a positive way. Also, as tolerance is really important in Afghanistan, and there are many groups who are working actively against toleration in the country, we are producing many programs with the aim of promotion of tolerance and decline of extremism in the country. So the listeners or the beneficiaries of Silk Road Station, fortunately in 2016, as our online statistics shows, our message and our radios programs reached to more than 300,000 people around the world. And they listen to our radio programs, to our programs. And in 2017, we reached to more than 3,400,000 in all over the world. And as you see in here, that on 2017, 78% of our listeners was from Asia, 13% was from Europe, and 9% we had listeners from America. So, what are the achievements? What we did? What we received? Approximately, we enhanced and when we could to reach to our message, to our voice of freedom and our educational programs to more than 300,000 people across the country and outside of the country. The second thing is that we bring positive change in lives of families, especially in decrease of violence against women in families, as we are producing many programs, and we received many positive feedbacks from our religious scholars, from other policymakers in the countries, that our programs affected on the lives of Afghan families, to how they should the behavior with their lives, with their daughters, and so on. Also, change in attitude of youths to how they should fight with extremism and work for a sustainable peace and prosperity in the country. Also, we could successfully bring many reforms in government policies. We have different programs that made the government to change their policies, especially for private sector of the country. And finally, as we are the first station in Afghanistan that working for these values and for these ideas, we gave the idea to other media, especially, they should work for tolerance, they should work for promotion of all the free society values in the country. So, how you can listen to our programs? The easiest way, everybody can find us to App Store and Google Store. Just please go to App Store and Google Store and write Silk Road Station, and in Google Play, just please write Silk Road Station. You can find our application, and where you are, you can listen to our radio programs. And also, you can check our website in every part of the world. Recently, we also had some things in Iran that the government of Iran blocked our IP, and the final thing as a special thanks to Atlas Network and also Network for a Free Society that they supported us to we establish this station. This station is not only belongs to the libertarian of Afghanistan, this station belongs to all the think tanks who are working for freedom and peace in all over the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khalid. Our next presenter is Akash Shrestha of the Samriddhi Foundation to present their Reform Circle project. Akash.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be presenting about our program called the Reform Circle. So, much like Samriddhi Foundation, we started the Reform Circle in 2011 coming out of major, political shifts and movements in Nepal. We thought if people were not being able to, derive tangible economic benefits out of, democracy or, these major political shifts that were happening in Nepal very frequently, almost once every decade, we thought, we were heading to another major conflict, then leading into another major political shift. So we thought it was really important to create a platform where, or it was really important to ensure that the democracy was delivering and people were being able to, draw tangible economic benefits out of the democracy. And we at Samriddhi believe that these tangible economic outcomes could be made possible through promoting markets and enabling entrepreneurship. But yes, that was our part of the story. In Nepal, we still lacked any major political party that completely believed in free market ideas. Economy had largely taken a backseat to politics. Coming out of a major civil war between 1996 and 2006, there was a lot of political instability. Amidst the political instability, political leaders were also focusing more and more on personal and party gains rather than economic growth of the country. So all in all, it was a difficult time for difficult time to promote ideas of free market in Nepal. And at one point, we were actually rather even scared that the liberal economic policies that had been adopted in the 1990s, early 1990s, during the liberalization era would backtrack to pre-liberalization era. So what we did was we put together a group of young politicians and business community leaders, and we created a common platform for them whereby they could candidly discuss some of the major political and economic issues of Nepal. What we did here was we created for them a closed platform so that political parties and political actors from across all parties could sit together, trust each other, and discuss openly their issues and their solutions. And the business community could also partake in this process. Samriddhi brought together, while bringing in the political leaders, we made sure that we were bringing in the second-tier political leaders, and using these second-tier political leaders also lent us, put us at a strategic position, and we could through them directly, also play a small role in the major political decision makings in the country. This is about how the Reform Circle works. Here in the Reform Circle, our approach is more of a multi-party, multi-sector alliance building rather than taking or building alliance, forging alliance with one or a few like-minded organizations, and then a lobbying for reform when they are in power. What we think multi-party and multi-sector alliance has enabled or made possible for us is to ensure that the reform agendas that the Reform Circle picks are common agendas of all parties engaged and become priority issues of all parties, no matter who is in power. Again, closed forum on economic growth. This was really important, especially considering the sensitivity of the issues and the political instability and everything. We needed to make sure that people, whatever ideas people were discussing were not going out, or create that space for candid discussion. That is also one of the reasons, by the way, why you will not see any of the discussions or anything, the reform circle in action during this entire presentation. We do not, we don't take pictures, we don't do media mentions, we don't do media covers of the reform circle in action. This circle also provides us a platform to engage parliamentarians and other leaders in pro-market ideas. Somebody makes it a point that we are doing presentations of our findings, dissemination of our findings during these reform circle meets. At this point, I should also mention that a lot of political parties nowadays, or especially political leaders nowadays, are also approaching us with requests of giving them talking pointers or writing pointers every time they get a, say, 3-minute or 5-minute slot to speak in the parliament the next day, or if they have to appear on TV or write a piece on the newspaper. It then allows us to feed our free market recommendations to these parliamentarians, which then later become their opinions and their commitments. At this point, I'm also tempted to bring in a nice example of when we had Dr. Eamon Butler from the Adam Smith Institute with us a couple of years ago in Nepal. So we had him engage with the representatives of the Reform Circle, and also later in a different platform with the representatives of Ministry of Industry and Department of Industry. So we put him together with these representatives, and he went on and said something like, you guys should all have to spend at least 1 year trying to establish a business in Nepal before you are allowed to take your positions at your respective departments or industries, so that you know the nuances of your stupid enterprise laws. Well, we could never do that ourselves. We could never say that ourselves. But the fact that at this forum we also make it a point to invite, to the extent possible, liberty champions from networks such as the Atlas Network or the Economic Freedom Network, and have them engage with our political leaders and business community leaders. Lends us that additional ear, or lends us the ear of the government in a much more serious way than they would listen to a small think tank or a group of people giving them different opinions or ideas. I'll come back to that in a while, but that little engagement with Dr. Eamon Butler did, after a year, lead to a major enterprise law win for us. At this point, we should also mention we focus on marginal changes during these reform circle meets, and do not try to engage in very heavy discussions that require the entire political community or the government itself to come in and sit for a major act reform. So we try to focus on smaller things that can be done. So how the Reform Circle aids policymakers is every time, some of the members, the political members of the Reform Circle are nominated to a government position, say become a minister, or are offered membership in a parliamentary committee, they made a point that they call for a meeting and invite all other members to share ideas, which allows them to forge a common agenda for growth going forward. Another is, like we've already mentioned, we do dissemination of our findings and also provide knowledge support to different parliamentarians and also business leaders. One of the important things this group does, and as a group, as a Nepali group, a group of capable, influential young people, is also take leadership at times of crisis. For example, in the year 2015, when after a series of massive earthquakes that hit Nepal, this group was one of the first groups to come out and host a 2-day conference called Ideas for Rebuilding Nepal. That was a marketplace of ideas where we engaged more than 2,000 participants, 2,000 people from across all economic sectors came in and lent their inputs into how the rebuilding process could be taken forward. It also engaged discussions on policy ideas that would enable more private sector investments and create better opportunities, more opportunities for growth. So some of the wins we've achieved through the Reform Circle initiative over the last 7 years now is we've built very strong networks with some of the key decision makers in the country. At this point, even the Prime Minister would be 2 phone calls away from Samriddhi Foundation. So that's the network that this Reform Circle has given to Samriddhi Foundation. Like I mentioned, the legal reform. So the Minister of Industry, who was then the then Minister of Industry when Dr. Eamon Butler engaged with our reform circle, was also, a member of the reform circle, and he issued a directive to the Department of Industry, which ensured that businesses, firms should be registered within 30 hours of having filed an application. So 10 a.m. in the morning, I file an application. 4 p.m. the next day, my industry is registered, at least at the Department of Industry. Similarly, in the Company Act reform process as well, we were invited by the Parliamentary Committee in the series of discussions that led to the Act reform, which ensured that companies would be incorporated within 7 days in Nepal. Also, we've been invited by the government's budget planning committee, where we've been invited into the closed camps, and we've worked with them to work out the budgets, where some of our recommendations have translated into the commitments of the government. And I think more importantly, in a society that is so driven by leftist ideas, I think this gives for us a platform to discuss pragmatic market-based solutions for prosperity, discuss some of the major political and economic problems of Nepal, and discuss their solutions for prosperity. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Akash. Our next presenter will be Mr. Casey Lartigue, presenting the Global Economic Center of Teach North Korean Refugees.
Okay, good afternoon. All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. We're really honored to be one of the finalists for the Asia Liberty Award. My name is Casey Lartigue. I'm co-founder along with Eun-gu Lee, who's there taking a photo of me now. And the thing about us is that we are definitely civil society in action. We've had more than 1,000 people participate in our organization over the last 4 years. 336 refugees, 727 volunteers have participated. Empowered. The refugees come in and they get to choose their study path. They get to choose the teachers and coaches that they work with. They are in charge of our project. And the last thing is that it is truly grassroots funding. All of our money is raised by our volunteers and through the events that we organize. Now, yesterday, you got to hear from one of the ambassadors in our program, Eun-hee Park, and she joined our program. And my speech would be more of a PS to what she said yesterday, because there's so much that she could have said. She joined our program in April of 2015, and at that time, her English was at the level of hi, nice to meet you. Now, when she joined, she did not use her name. She hid her face because at that time, she said she was embarrassed to be from North Korea. When we hold our sessions, we take a group photo. She even refused to be in the group photo because she didn't want to be identified as being from North Korea. She started getting comfortable with herself. She would come to us for counseling, talking about her future, but still she couldn't show her face publicly. But as she started getting more comfortable, she decided she wanted to give a public speech. And she's the first student in our program who went from being a purely English study student to starting to give public speeches. So we weren't sure how to handle it, but she still did not want to show her face. But she started to blossom. And as she says that the volunteers and others who were helping her gave her confidence in herself so that she could finally say, as she did yesterday, that she is from North Korea. We are civil society. We rely completely on volunteers to make it happen. And as she says, it felt like a whole new world to her because in North Korea, there's no such thing as civil society. Okay, she even participated in a speech contest and she's now become a TV celebrity in South Korea, which she didn't mention yesterday. And we're even on a TV show with her one time, so happy about that. And so I wrote a column about her, and when I sent her the version of it so she could see and check all the facts, she said, "Don't forget to mention my name is Eun-hee Park." Okay? So she went through this complete transformation. So that was the title of my column. Now, we've had other refugees through our program who've also gone through transformations, and some of you may be familiar with Yeonmi Park. She gained international attention, actually October 2014, with a speech at One Young World. I was her coach to get her prepared to give that speech. She joined me when I worked at Freedom Factory. She was our media fellow. She became the ambassador, the first refugee ambassador of Teach North Korean Refugees, and we did a podcast together. And she has participated in Atlas Network and fellow events. So this was at the Shanghai Austrian Economic Summit. So this was like her first international speech. And we also had an event with the Atlas Network Experience in September 2014, in which we did a recording of the podcast that we've been doing together. And she's now an author of a book. She mentioned me twice, although I asked why only twice. You know, it could have been more than that. But she's established herself internationally. Sherry Yang is another refugee who joined our program. And she also started with Freedom Factory, where I used to work, used to be in the network, and TNKR as a student. And she also was able to go on a trip to the USA, sponsored by the Atlas Network. So we went there in early 2015. You can see Stephanie and Brad there. But she at first was not really that positive and confident about giving speeches. But she, really started to focus on it, and she ended up winning our speech contest. We have 2 of them per year so that the refugees can work with their coaches. And in October, she gave a TEDx talk in the UK. And so you can go online, type Sherry Yang, and you can watch her talk about her escape from North Korea. We have others who come through our program. Sungju Lee is the author of the book, Every Falling Star. He was the winner of our first speech contest that we had in February 2015. Eun-sun Kim is the author of a book, 1,000 Miles to Freedom, and she was the winner of our third speech contest. And we have others who, they just love what we're doing. They hear so much from refugees about how much of an impact we have on them. So Janjin Sung, who was the psychological warfare officer for the North Korean regime, he's the author of the book, Dear Leader. He now joined our board of directors, and he said, please just use my name whenever possible in any way that he can help us. So as I said, we're a civil society. We make sure that the refugees are in control at all times. They lead the program. And I want to finish with 2 testimonials. One of them is from the refugees in our program. And because in North Korea, they're taught that Americans are evil, that they just like to kill for fun. But not only do the volunteers benefit, they learn from North Korean refugees, but also the refugees learn about the outside world. And they learn it in a way that they have people volunteering to help them. So she said, as I can hear from the giggles you've already read, from TNKR, I learned that not all Americans are assholes. And she says it's been a great experience. And so many of them say similar things about the benefit. And then I'll just finish with a quote from Yeonmi Park. She says that TNKR gave her name. So we're focused on refugees. We make sure that they're in control. And we try to build a community of support around them so that they can find their own way, as Eunhee did yesterday, giving a speech to you. And quickest way to find us on the internet is lovetnkr.com. Thank you very much.
Well, that concludes our 3 presentations. There'll be a great deal of anticipation because the winner will be announced this evening at the gala dinner. So be sure to be there and on the edge of your seat to learn who will be winning. And with this, I'll turn it back to our wonderful presenter, Anthea.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to the Asia Liberty Award finalists. Good luck and all the best for tonight. Now I want to introduce my colleague and General Manager of the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies, Sarah Sihaloho, to take the stage to make some announcements. Sarah?
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great time so far. Bear with us. We have more fun coming. But right now, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you about CIPS. You are seeing everywhere our logo that we are the co-hosts. I think I want to give a little bit of information about who we are. So CIPS, that's the short and the easiest way to pronounce it, is the Center for Indonesian Policy Studies. It's a Jakarta-based think tank dedicated to providing policy analysis and practical policy recommendation to decision makers. So we're here in Jakarta since 2015, and we're so happy to co-host Asia Liberty Forum 2018. And we are one of Atlas Network partners in Indonesia. But we're not alone. We have some other partners of Atlas in Indonesia, and I would like to quickly introduce them to you. So number one, first, I would like to welcome Rofi Udarojat. Rofi? Oh, okay. This is not Rofi. Okay, anyway, Rofi this is Johan. He's from Suara Kebebasan. Suara Kebebasan is a website for freedom. That is the essence of suarakebebasan.org. Our vision is a free, prosperous, and tolerant society in Indonesia where the environment enables open discussions on freedom and free market ideas in public discourses and policy processes. The Libertarian Portal mission is promoting ideas of liberty and providing comprehensive understanding on freedom and free market. Please clap for Johan. Thank you, Johan. Yeah, they're there. Okay, next I would like to call Adinda Muhtar from the Indonesian Institute, which is an independent, non-partisan, non-profit institution that aims of becoming a main research center in Indonesia for public policy matters. TII's visions are public policies in Indonesia, which highly uphold human rights and rule of law, as well as involve participation of various stakeholders and practice democratic good governance principles. Thank you, Medinda. Okay, next I would like to call to the stage Muhammad Iksan from IMPACT, stands for Initiative for Market Reform and Policy Action, whose aims to produce research-based and impactful policy recommendation for Indonesian policymakers to promote consumer rights, prosperity, and sustainable development by emphasizing individual choice, entrepreneurship, and property rights. Thank you, Mas Iksan. Okay, we have more. I want to call to the stage next is Nanang Sunandar from INDEX, Institut Demokrasi dan Kesejahteraan Sosial, which is a civil society organization that believes that individual freedom is a key value that should be the basis of both political and economic life. The mission of INDEX is to strengthen the respect for civil liberties and economic freedom among Indonesian people and policymakers for sustainable democracy and prosperity. Thank you, Mas Nana. Okay, last but not least, the name is already really famous and yeah, that's it. I want to call Nicole Annabella. Yeah, from Students for Liberty, which is, you know what it is. It's the largest libertarian student movement in the world. And their mission is to educate, develop, and empower the next generation of leaders of liberty. Thank you, Nicole. Can we take a picture? Okay, let's have a group picture quickly on the stage. All right. Okay, I'm not done yet. Just a little bit more. I want to take the time to also give information about a conference in Australia. It is called the Australian Libertarian Society Friedman Conference, or they will call it AELSO Friedman Conference. This year is going to be the 6th AELSO Friedman Conference, and it will be in Sydney from 25th until 27th May. And this was started in 2013, the first one, as a joint initiative between the Australian Libertarian Society and the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. The conference now has become the must-attend event for anyone interested in small government, free markets, and liberty. It attracts an audience of senior policymakers, academics, business leaders, and the best and brightest of Australia's activist community. Okay, we, CIPS, in cooperation with Students for Liberty, are picking a person to be sent to the conference with a full scholarship provided by the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. And we have the winner, and he's here somewhere, I hope. Okay. I want to call Iqbal Dawam Wibisono. Iqbal? Yes, he's over there. Okay, Iqbal will go to Sydney to attend the conference with a full scholarship of the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. And he is the contributor at suarakebebasan.org and is a charter team member of Students for Liberty in Indonesia. He has written articles and has conducted studies in several topics, including property rights, competition, philosophy, public economy, development economy, and trade. Okay, Iqbal, congratulations. And yeah, that will be all, guys, for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And thanks to all the Indonesian civil society organizations. It's actually very encouraging that we're getting more partners here in Indonesia. And I'm sure we'll definitely be forming alliances and working together to promote a more free society here in this country. All right, I do have a few announcements, just very quickly. I have found somebody's hotel key card. There's no room number, but if you are missing it, do come to me and collect it. If not, I'll just pop it by the hotel concierge. And also, all our sessions are being recorded on video. So after the ALF, we hope to share with you the link where you can all watch the sessions in case you've missed anything. Okay, now it's after lunch. You're probably a little drowsy, so we want to get you on your feet again. So I'd like to actually call my cheeky colleague again, Lulu, to get you everybody on their feet. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthea. So now I would like the volunteers to stand right there, and please, all of you who are sitting now, stand in front of the volunteers that we have in each row, and then create lines. Just move, stand up, and then choose one of volunteers, and please stand in front of them now. Okay, everyone has standing now. Okay. Now, what we have to do is the volunteers has, a sentence that they will whisper to the person who stands, in front of them. And that person also should whisper to the person who stands in front of them. Just like that, do it continuously. And then you only have 20 seconds to listen. And then after that, if you hear that sound, it means that you need to stop. And then you need to stop to listen to the person, behind you, and then start to whisper to the person who stands, in front of you. So if you hear this sound, it means that we have to end the game. Okay, you only have 20 seconds, okay? Each of you only have 20 seconds, and then after that, there will be someone who will pass the microphone to the last person who get the message, and then we will here who can tell the story correctly. For those of you, like the group who lost the game, they have to dance, okay? Always remember that if you lose the game, you have to dance. On the count of 3, everyone has to be ready. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go! After 20 seconds, you have to stop. Don't forget to play the sound if it is already 10 seconds. Iya. Udah nggak usah. Enggak mesti, pokoknya 20. Kayak udah semua ya. Berarti nggak usah sampai akhir. Bilangin abis ini putar musik yang thumbs up. Bilangin ke sana. Okay, now I would like to call a volunteer to check and pass the microphone to the last person who got the whisper. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start from here. Excuse me, sir. Can we ask you what the answer was?
The answer is the national park.
Great. Very straightforward and to the point. Thank you very much. Well, we are gonna check on the others first.
The community national park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that covers 100,000 acres.
Okay, thank you very much. Give a big round of applause.
Komodo National Park is UNESCO Heritage Site which cover 1,000 kilometers square.
Thank you very much for that answer. Let's check on the last one. Okay.
The Komodo National Park is a UNESCO heritage site that covers more than 1,000 kilometers square.
Give a big round of applause for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would like to announce, so the winner is the third group. So everyone, you lost the game. So this group, you don't have to dance. But all of you who lost the games, you have to dance. So I would like the volunteers to come up stage. Yeah, we will play the music and you should dance just like what the volunteers, shows you. Please come forward. Boleh kalau kamu mau tahu gerakannya.
Okay, can all volunteers?
These are the volunteers who will show you the kind of dance that you should do. Okay. Please pay attention. You have to do this dance. Okay. Please play the music now. To do it a little bit faster. Okay, 1, 2, 3. For everyone, I would like to call my colleague Anthea, probably.
If I can ask you to take your places, we have a very insightful session about what it takes to be an intellectual entrepreneur and start your own think tank with Dr. Tom Palmer. Tom has consulted and traveled to countless think tanks all around the world. He has seen many think tanks blossom into truly inspiring organizations, and he has also seen some fail. Sharing his insights and experience on what it takes to start a policy think tank, please welcome back again to the stage Dr. Tom Palmer.
Well, thank you so much. I should begin by something I normally say you shouldn't ever do, which is a little bit of an apology. I have not shaken anyone's hands here. And there's a reason for that, and that's that I'm a very selfish person. I got a nasty cold, and I don't want to share it with any of you. It's my cold, and I'm going to keep it. But that's the reason I've maybe been less friendly than I normally appear. I've been involved in the Liberty Movement for a few years. Casey reminded me that we had met in 1998. I said, that's not possible. That would be 20 years ago. But I've been involved for much, much longer than that. And one of the first organizations I was involved in setting up, they were in the communist countries. So some of these are still in existence, the Liberalny Institute in Prague, Catalaxy in Moscow, and others. And I learned a few things over the years about what to do and what not to do. So let me start then with the opening. What do you start with? You start with an idea. But it needs to be a very particular kind of idea, not just we're going to make things better. Ask yourself the question, what is the problem to which the organization we want to set up is the solution? What is the lack that we are going to address and supply? And formulate that. What's the problem? You have a solution, but first, what's the problem to which you're offering a solution? And then you need a team. Quite often people start just saying, well, I'm one person with an idea. It's very hard for only one person to make this happen. You do need a team of people. And that means people who are committed to it in one way or another. Look for some complementarity of skills or resources. It might be one person has tremendous ability in communication or research or resources. Maybe you have a member who can financially support you or has a business that can be helpful to you. Your core team is the group of people you're really going to rely on, and one of them needs to be a driver. And my definition of a driver is the person who goes to bed at night thinking about the problems and wakes up in the morning thinking about what is going to be done that day with and for the organization. Now, you might have a multitude of those people, but you need at least one for whom this is a passionate commitment, not a hobby or not some little side activity. You go to bed, sleep thinking about it, and you wake up in the morning thinking about it. You need to get educated on what other people have done. And we have a wonderful program at Atlas Network that you can do online, the Think Tank Navigator. It helps people to get straight on what it is that they can accomplish. What do they want to do? What is your passion? What are you able to accomplish? So it's a very useful preliminary to establishing a new organization. And I'm saying this also for people who are involved in existing organizations. It's worth going through this just to clarify your role, your thinking, what it is that you hope to be able to accomplish. There are a few documents you want to sit down with your core team and make sure all of you sign off on this. We agree with this. This is what we have in common. So it's not just something someone writes and then puts up, says, this is it. You should have some conversation over tea or beer or whatever is appropriate for you. Sit down and really discuss it, rework it. The key is to come to an agreement as to what it is you want to do. And the first one is a vision statement. It should be an inspiring general statement of what you hope to accomplish. So I'll just give you the examples with Atlas Network. Our vision is of a free, prosperous, and peaceful world where limited governments defend the rule of law, private property, and free markets. Now, our board of directors spent actually a substantial amount of time debating and discussing and going back and forth until it was one they all agreed to. That all of our board agreed to this. All the staff members have signed off on this also. This is our vision of what we hope to accomplish. A mission statement. Why does your organization exist? Why are you here? Well, let me give you an example of Atlas Networks. Our mission is to strengthen the worldwide freedom movement by cultivating a highly effective and expansive network. I should point out every word was discussed. It's effective. We try to increase the capabilities of our partners by providing them with training and opportunities. And it's expansive. We want to grow. We want the benefits of liberty and dignity and justice and peace to reach every corner of the world. That a network that inspires and incentivizes all committed individuals and organizations to achieve lasting impact. So that's our mission at the Atlas Network. Yours will be focused on whatever it is you think that you should be accomplishing. Well, in terms of missions, some of the things that you might be able to accomplish: public education, popularization of ideas. We have some partners who focus mainly on putting them in popular terms in videos and other things that people can grasp. It might be legal advocacy, public policy research, and so on, or some combination. But the key to a mission statement is it tells you not only what you do, you can refer to it when someone proposes something and say, well, we don't do that. It's not in our mission. Because one thing you want to avoid is having little bits and bobs attached to your organization so that at the end of a couple of years you don't realize, why are we here anymore? Because you kept adding things that seem like good programs. Someone should do it. But the question is, should we do it? Is it part of our mission? The fact someone should do it is not enough. The question is it part of our mission? And your mission statement should help you to decide that. You need to have a business model and a business plan. There are many different models of a think tank, and they will be determined by the laws in your country, the tax laws, the registration procedures. There's no one model globally. Every country is different. So look at your legal situation. and decide how you're going to be organized. So a number of options. Independent non-governmental research institute. So think of IEA in London as really the flagship of that, or CCS in India. A university-based independent research center. It's another opportunity, another option. I recommend when doing that to try to become independent and not subservient to the rector of the university, but to be an authentically independent center. A charitable institution, this is another option in different countries. And finally, in some countries, an independent for-profit company turns out to be the best way to do it, because the legal system does not really permit a charitable organization or an independent research group. So look to the legal code, and one thing I recommend, ask lawyers. Go to real lawyers who really practice law, not your friend who has an opinion. And say, what is the legal situation here? What can we do? What is required? What is the best option for us in your own country? You need to have a business plan. Just like rolling out any new business, you need to have a plan. And that needs to have the normal elements of a business plan. One of the things that we stress at Atlas Network is you think of yourself as being in the education business or the social advocacy business or the research business. You're running a business. And if you run out of money in September because you didn't budget yourself correctly, it doesn't matter how wonderful and nice you are. You're out of money. You need to follow proper business procedures. So maybe it's a nonprofit. Okay. But you still need to run in a business-like manner. You need to have clear timelines and deadlines. We hope to publish this book, this study, have this conference, this parliamentarian consultation, whatever, and work backwards with your timeline. What has to be done by what date to be able to meet your rollout schedule. The same thing as if you are producing a new product, a new automobile, a new kind of watch, anything else. You need to be businesslike. And a budget, or as I like to put it, budgets, plural. The first budget, and this is a nonsensical budget, really go out and cost things out, not just numbers out of the air. 1 million rupiah, 10 million rupiah, 200 million rupiah. What does it really cost to do what you intend to do? Start with what you hope to do. You want to hold a conference, you want to have this, go and find out how much it costs. And I know from the perspective of someone who reviews grant proposals and is a personal donor to many projects, I don't believe it when people say it will cost $5,000. I don't believe it. It means they didn't go and find out what it will really cost. And I want to know they checked it and they said $5,200, $4,690, whatever it is. Shows to me they did the research. They didn't just pull a number out of the air. So create a budget that you think is realizable and modest. We could do it. It's our minimum viable product, as they call in business. This is the minimum viable product. We could produce this and it would be something real. It wouldn't be half of something. It would be all of one important project. Then add a little bit more. Let's say 25%. What if you're more successful than you had expected? What would you do? What more would you roll out? And then finally, just for your own purposes, a fantasy budget. What if you're really successful? Or you meet some entrepreneur who says, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this all my life. What would you do? And the reason is sometimes you will meet that entrepreneur. And when the entrepreneur says, what would you do with 200 million rupiah? It would be good to have an answer and not, I don't know. But that's your fantasy budget. What would you do if you had a lot of resources? But I recommend 3 budgets and really cost them out systematically so they're not just pulled out of the air. We'd spend 2,000 on this and 10,000 on that and 5,000 on this. What would it really, in fact, cost? Not wild guesses. A marketing plan. You might ask, who are your customers? You are a business, and a business has customers. You need to make sure the customers are happy. Something you learn in business very quickly. Unhappy customers equals bankruptcy. You want happy customers. Well, who are your customers? Are they the ones who give you money? That's the obvious one. Your donors, they're giving you money. What are they getting in exchange? Presumably not privileges or benefits. You don't have any to hand out. You're not a corrupt government official. So what is it they get? Well, they get an identity. They get the knowledge, I'm this kind of person who stands up for these values. People who buy your books or your papers, they're customers. You want them to be happy, to realize they got value from it. I have a definition of a customer. People who expend scarce resources to consume your products. So if you think about it, all of the various people you interact with can be seen as customers. People who visit your web page spent 10 minutes of their valuable time. They didn't give money, but they spent 10 minutes. A student who comes to your conference spends 3 hours that could be done doing something else that's more fun. But that person spent time. If a newspaper editor is going to print your article, you submit an op-ed on food prices in Indonesia and why Indonesians will benefit from free trade. The editor of the newspaper decides to spend this much of a page. That's very valuable. That's the resource the editor has. The editor is going to spend it on you or someone else. What value do you bring to that editor, causing the editor to spend that scarce resource on you? So when you think about customers, we normally think of people like this. But in fact, your customer base is made up of all sorts of different groups. Policymakers and entrepreneurs and students, newspaper editors. Those are all customers. And you should ask, what value are we delivering to these customers such that they will want to consume our products? Now, the other element, and this is one we had a conference on before this, is fundraising. That's very important. Raising capital for your activities. It is not begging. This is the hardest thing for people to overcome. We are raised by our parents not to be beggars. That's normal. We internalize it. I don't want to go beg and be pathetic and sad to people. When you raise money for your activity, you are not a beggar. You are raising capital investments for a valuable project. You're creating value in the world. And your donor is someone who has capital and resources. You have time and energy and intellect. Together, you'll make a business. And this business will add value to the world. So when people are going out to raise capital for their enterprise, they're not begging, they're raising capital. And that is what you are doing as well. Overcome that burden, that obstacle, and practice asking for funds for your activities. It's a hard thing to overcome. Once you get over it, you realize you're helping other people. This is one thing I learned a long time ago. One of the donors, I felt all embarrassed asking, and he said, you seem a little ashamed of this. He said, don't be. He says, I can't run all these projects. I run a successful business, but I want these things to happen. We can make a partnership. It changed my whole view on the world when I learned that. When you do that, join the Atlas Network. And you are part of a global network of friends. And one thing I think that's become very clear in the course of this conference, we have friends all over the world who work for our principles and our values in so many different circumstances. Some of them at great personal risk to themselves. And there are some of our friends who are not here because they have been punished by governments for standing up for truth and justice and have paid terrible prices for it. But always know you are not alone. You are not alone. There are other people who share your values, people who care about you, and people who will be helpful to you and support you, even in very difficult and dark times. And with that, as they say in Italian, libertiamo means let's liberty. Let's create a world that is free and just and prosperous and peaceful. And your participation in Atlas Network is a very important part of that project. Thank you very much for your time and your participation.
Thank you, Tom. That was really very practical advice to have for us all from coming from a think tank. And I hope to see we have more policy think tanks in Asia popping up and joining the Atlas Network. All right. So that's the business plan of it. And now I'd like everybody to put on their entrepreneurial cap, because starting a think tank with a business model is only the half of it. The other part is money, funding. How are you going to get your projects off the ground, pay your staff? It's a little anxiety inducing, but thankfully our next session will help you think about ways your think tank idea can get off the ground and be sustainable. With the generous support of the Acton Institute, who has sponsored this session, our next panel of speakers will share with you their varied experience on how they've generated revenue for their think tanks. To lead this panel, I'd like to call on Executive Director at Center for Indonesian Policy Studies, Reiner Heufers. Reiner, take it away.
Thank you very much, Anthea. Thank you very much, Tom, for your presentation just now. So we're getting slightly more technical now. We have had lots of discussions about public policies and everything, but we're also people working in think tanks, and sometimes we need to talk about the management issues that we are facing. So while they are putting the chairs on the stage, just briefly, so we heard about what to consider when you start a think tank, what to consider when you run a think tank. It's about management issues. We need to discuss human resource management issues. We have communication challenges that we need to address. We need to basically be on top of almost everything that a normal company needs to be also on top of. And if we are not effective in research, then we are not functioning as a think tank. If we're not working effectively in communications, then we might do great research, but nobody knows we exist and we become irrelevant. So we have to be good at all these things that we are doing. And indeed, the Atlas Network is incredibly helpful training think tanks in all these various aspects. And we had the fundraising training just before this Asia Liberty Forum, and you saw the elevator pitches yesterday that were the people that participated in that fundraising training. Now, fundraising. One thing about fundraising is that you need to be able to speak to people who are interested in what you're doing, or get them interested in what you're doing, and convince them that an investment in your organization is the right thing to do. That is quite often associated with individuals, people who have the money to actually support you in this, and other resources as well. It is also about making grants and getting donations from foundations, etc. But that's not where it stops. Quite often we only talk about that. We need to also talk about other ways of generating revenues for our think tanks, and that's what we want to do on this panel. And for that purpose, I would like now to invite our panelists to come on stage. First of all, Ms. Ayesha Bilal from the Prime Institute, the Chief Operating Officer, here with us today. Come on stage, please. Ayesha. Our second panelist is Robin Sutula, Chief Executive Officer of the Samriti Foundation in Kathmandu, Nepal. Our third panelist is Gulmira Aidaralieva from the Central Asian Free Market Institute in Kyrgyzstan. Welcome on stage, Gulmira. And last but not least, Mr. Jürgen Keitel from AirAsia, based in Malaysia, fellow German. Finally, I have another German on stage. Please take your seat. What I would like to do is I'd like to just ask them a few questions first, but then we really go into the discussion with everybody here. As usual, there are volunteers who are able to help with microphones so that you are able to actually address the panelists here. So thank you very much, all four of you, to come and join us here today. So as I said, it's not all about grants and donations. It's really also about other business models. And I've been not as long as Tom, but also a long time in the freedom movement. And I've seen many, many different models that were used. For example, We have seen the Unirule Institute in Beijing, long time ago, they started trying a consultancy to make some more money so that the whole thing becomes more sustainable. We have had many other approaches. For example, I visited recently Myanmar and I spoke to the friends from the Yangon School of Political Science. They run their own printing house. They make actually money with printing books and other things themselves. Find that highly interesting. Also in Yangon, there's a group that is selling facilitation and training services, making money that way, just to maintain the institute and maybe cover some basic costs for their organization. So there are various ideas of what else can be done besides doing the important thing of going for grants and donations. So I want to go beyond those two things. So my very first question would be, what are your experiences with starting your own business on the side? I mean, these questions may be targeted at only one or two of you with that experience, but everybody is very, very welcome to chip in with this as well. But let me start this directly with Robin here, because Robin has started a couple of businesses besides Samriddhi. And so that question, I start with you, Robin. Yeah, what are the experiences with starting your own business? How has that worked parallel to having the Samriddhi Foundation, and what were your experiences?
Right. Check. Yeah. Thank you, Rainer. I'm very, very glad to share this, share the things that we do silently under the radar. And this is the first time we're able, talking about this publicly. I've been engaged with Samriddhi Foundation for 12 years now, since the beginning. And in the last 12 years, not just Samriddhi Foundation, but we've also started many other initiatives, which some of you might know and some of you might not be aware of. So currently, in total, we have, in addition to Samriddhi, we have other 5 companies that were incubated alongside. And some are like 5, 6 years old, and some are younger, and some are doing good, and some are just starting up. So that's kind of the background. And then there are 2 other new companies that are likely to come up this year. So there are 2 in the making. I have to tell you that these are all service-based companies. So that basically provides different kind of services. But there is an element of liberty in each of these service-based companies. And I would like to share you quickly the story of how this started and what happened. And I'm telling this story because maybe as each organizations grow, we roughly go through more or less the same stage or same growth pattern because we are all in the business of think tanks. So as we started building Samriddhi and as we started getting noticed, as we started building our brand, we started earning reputation. And as we started earning reputation, say, for example, one of the reputation that we had was these young researchers, coming with research and data and, making a case. So we started getting a lot of requests in the market saying, hey, can you get us a resource on this? We'll pay you to do this. Or can you get us data on this? We'll pay you to do this. And we said, no, somebody can't do this because, whatever we do have to be aligned to the mission of what we do. We don't do nonsense. But then we could see there is so many, people wanting us to do that. And we thought, oh, maybe we could set up a company to do that for you. And we set up a company called Facts, which specializes in data and research. And it's completely based on the market. In its own way, Facts, as a company, promotes more information so that people can make better choices. So the whole idea is around choices. So it connects to the work that we do. And then we also, in our development stage, we are very popular about entrepreneurship programs. And then the small, medium enterprises started approaching us saying, we are enterprises, we need support. And we're like, what kind of support? And they're like, can you help us figure out our human resource strategy? Or can you help us figure out our profitability? And then we were like, somebody that doesn't do that. But we set up a company called Lead that works with entrepreneurs. And then we started getting requests for videos and documentaries. And we set up a film company called Onion Films, so on and so forth. So that's how we set up the companies. In the beginning, we had no idea if we would be setting up the companies, but as opportunities came in, we saw money, and we needed money everywhere. And that was the reason why we set up the company. the way these companies are set up is once we kind of recognize there is minimum viable product, as to put it in Tom's word, just the previous conversation. As we see that opportunity, we also scout for a team member within the foundation who might be interested to build business around that, or someone who is passionate to build that business. And if there is a match of ideas and a person who would build it, we start with that person. Initially, we incubate it in our own office, we mentor, and then we move it forward. But the model is completely value exchange model, and you might be thinking there might be shares of somebody onto that company or this or that. It's not how it works. All of these companies are all independent. They have their own team members, they have their own structures, cultures, attitudes, everything, and they're separate from the Samriddhi Foundation office.
Can I come in there with a question? Because what I've seen in the past in certain think tanks is that when you be a not-for-profit think tank and you have a for-profit unit, that can actually interfere and that can cause problems. You have it completely separated.
So just to pick it on Reiner's point, at one point in time, one of our company and the think tank was together. And the think tank was being too dependent on the company. They were like, if the company brings in work, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll read, and we have all the books in the library, right? And then when there was work and overwhelming, the company people would say, "Gus, we have to feed these people. There are potential tensions," and we systematically realized that, and we separated the companies, and we learned it that we have to keep them separate. And also, I was talking about cultures and attitudes, if you noted a while ago, because the culture or the attitude to go out and sell in the market and create a value and sell every day is very different than doing a think tank work, honestly. The psychologies are different. At Samriddhi, we hate government. At the consulting company, we don't hate the government. It could be our potential client. It teaches us a lot of, other side or other humanities. But then, considering the time, I'll just, want to make short points right away. I have to tell you honestly that whether this model is successful or not, we don't know. We're experimenting it. We're too young to say whether this model is successful. There have been three advantages. The biggest advantage is that our voice is louder. Once upon a time, there used to be only one group called Samriddhi Foundation in Nepal that was pro-free market. Today, that is not the case. There are 10 or 12. So the voice is louder. And then this also offers a lot of opportunities to team members, because people who work with us, they learn to enjoy freedom. They don't want to go and work with a socialist group, right? And so there are other companies that can offer that opportunity for people. So that way it helps us in retaining people. And so people take a break, go to the consulting company, 2 years, they come back to the think tank. It's always that case, and that's always been useful for us. And in addition to that, more importantly, these companies make profit, which is beautiful, and a part of the profit they donate it to the think tank, and it helps us do what we want to do. And so therefore, we're finding it interesting, and we'd like to do more. I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are the others having thoughts on this?
We don't have separate business, but we do also commercial research, several times in a year, just to make sure that our administrative costs will be covered by them. Because when you depend on grants, your budget is very limited, and the type where you can spend this money, or you can be flexible on it. But when you have extra money from your commercial part, we don't do it very often. And we really choose what we can do and what we can't do. For example, to do some surveys for companies, for foreign companies or for local companies, just to market research. It's also helpful for us to understand better market and also work more with business community and to later involve for our activities too. So that's how we build, first of all, trust. Secondly, it's profit. And our price is much lower than other commercial companies. That's how we also
Yeah, thank you, Gumira. That's nice. That takes us right away to my next question, but more to the second business model that I will to talk about is exactly that. And that's quite a few think tanks in the movement that are actually approaching companies for that, for market research, market surveys. So that's being offered. And this has, in some cases, been successful, and in other cases, has not been successful. Ayesha, how was that for you?
So thank you very much, Rainer, and thank you, Atlas, for having me here. And assalamu alaikum, everyone. So my story is a little, our story, Prime story is not a very ideal one, but there are obviously lessons to be learned from there. Can I just explain the rationale behind the product and why we introduced it? So the rationale was based on the idea by Ali Salman on, he also gave a presentation on this, on the fundraising training, why products can be better for think tanks instead of projects. The two main benefits would be that, so when you're talking about projects, they are funded by donors, but donors are not your beneficiaries or your target audience, right? So there is naturally a gap. So beneficiaries are not really paying for the benefits that they're getting out of your outputs, and the stakeholders, the target audience, as the policymakers, they do not necessarily want the outputs that you're generating. So there is naturally a gap. And other than that, products can also help in sustainability instead of projects, because projects you have to rely on donors, donating every time, and you have to write proposals, and you have to bet on, whether it's going to be accepted or not. But once you have a credible product in the market, you can market it, and you have those subscribers or your consumers who are going to consume it. So that was basically the idea behind introducing a product for Prime. And if I just explain a little bit about the product was basically a monthly subscription-based publication. It was a research report, and it was based on an annual subscription. And so the idea was that there is a demand for research, for some actionable intelligence within the private sector, but they do not want to delve into academic papers, which are very lengthy and very, technical for them, but they do not also want to just search off the internet and get something, not very reliable. So we had to maintain that balance. We had to be reliable in terms of our research, and also provide some quality research in a very simple language that the private sector could understand. So this was based on, our own networking, and there was clearly a demand for this. So over time, we introduced this product. We had a marketing strategy of, going to our network and having mass emails, cold calls, and a lot of other strategies were implemented. But unfortunately, over the period of 2 years, we were not able to, increase our subscription base to as much as we hoped for. There were naturally costs not only associated with the actual production of this report every month, but also costs associated with the marketing of this product. Because if you want to tap to the right people, it means that the senior person or somebody who really understands the business has to make presentations to that group and on a very regular basis. And for that, of course, you need resources, and you need that person to be completely occupied with that particular task. So over time, it became, the cost kind of exceeded the benefits. And our subscribers were a little unhappy that we had to discontinue the product. But, that's the decision that we had to take eventually.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that, because, it is really not helpful only to talk about best cases and success stories. Some things sometimes don't work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to start 5 things, 4 fail,
right,
but that one thing flourishes.
If I could just add a little bit, but it was not all unsuccessful, because during the time that we had to, do the marketing strategy, and we had to come up with this product, and we had to please our consumers, we really understood the value of, branding and product standardization, because of course we were a very young think tank and we had these considerations. But when you have direct consumers who read your, analysis and give you direct feedback, instead of just having a seminar and people not directly engaging with you in that sense, so that really gave us a very clear feedback on our analysis, and we were really able to improve on ourselves. So it was not all a loss. It was really helped us in that sense.
Yeah, thank you. At least I have a lot of questions in that regard, but later we can discuss this in a broader way. Right now, I would like to look at the perspective of the industry. Jürgen, from your perspective, what do corporations need? What would you potentially expect from a think tank. For us, it's also always a question of measuring success. So ultimately, I guess, in my experience, industries would be interested that certain regulations get changed. But then again, for us to write a proposal, we'll have the regulation changed by March 2018, might be slightly overpromising. So we have to kind of like find out what is realistically achievable so that we don't overpromise and underdeliver, etc. That, I think, is something that all of us need to figure out on our side. I'm interested in the perspective from you, from the industry.
Thank you. Does this work? Yeah, I guess it works. First of all, thanks for having me and having us here on the stage this afternoon. We're very pleased to be here, especially sort of trying to give a little bit the industry perspective and coming from sort of like an airline, which is a very operational background, but from an entrepreneurial background. I think let's go one step back. We all talk about think tanks, but what is a think tank? We know consultants, we know foundations, we know industry associations, we know business partners, we know government entities. We'll deal with a lot of different stakeholders, and then suddenly you have think tanks. So you go, oh, what's a think tank? And I think the question is really around what was mentioned before. What is the goal, what is the objective, and what is the need? Because obviously you can fulfill surveys through consultants, you can have direct engagement with the government entities, you can have relationships with all of these different partners, you can be part of an industry association and so, but I think when you look at it and when you look at the challenges and the needs, it's really threefold. The first one is having a larger visionary scope. That means, what is the interest? For us in AirAsia, very much so being visionaries and having our co-founders, Tan Sri Doni Fernandez and Dato Ding Maran, Kamarudin Maran, really founding that company 16 years ago with that vision, now everyone can fly, with the vision of affordable fares, with the vision of connectivity in Asia and ASEAN across. How can you expand on that, and how can you sort of like try to also loosen up certain regulations and forming a community which supports connectivity, and also highlighting the message about how important is aviation in the region, how important, what contribution does that have to the economy, to tourism, and to the growth of communities. So, and I think there, what has always been sort of then missing is a little bit that independent voice. That voice where we say it doesn't have to be actually a consultant which sort of replicates our views, because we need an institution which actually has independent, credible research and has also the ears of institutions like government entities, which probably then also sort of advances the agenda and certain topics on a fairly high basis. I think we don't, especially since the aviation industry is very much regulated and it all can be very technical, we don't need technical experts, we don't need technical consultants to change the business process. What the think tanks can actually provide is sort of the bigger picture. What is the impact to the national economies? What is the impact to the consumers, to the society of certain changes, all of regulations and of laws, and how can that change the mindset and the shape? So it's independent. It is also the message. Does the message have the right ear? It could have different audiences, and also the understanding. That means, is that message being spread? Sometimes a report is nice, but a report, how many people read reports these days? How big are reports? How scientific are they? How many people can understand them? So the last point really is then, how can that message be easily distributed so that the media world can understand it, the society can understand it, and mindsets can be really changed, or at least the topic can be understood and awareness can be created.
Thank you. Do the other three have a question or a comment while you think about that? Now I also open up to the audience. If you have questions to the panelists here in the front, either on the existing business models that we have discussed, or maybe you have additional ideas for other business models that you've seen being used and would like to introduce them to us, anything would be quite interesting for us. Think about it, and please indicate that you would like to ask a question. Yes, go, Mira.
all like business models, they're like part of some associations. So you talked about like bigger picture. But for example, in the case of Kyrgyz Republic, most of the like entrepreneur businessmen, they're already part of some associations, and they're already paying membership fees. So, and these associations represent them for like decision makers when something happens, or they want to promote like your interests there. So you told that you're expecting from think tanks like bigger picture. Do they like this association provide for you already this picture, and what's the difference will be?
I think the difference is really when we talk the sort of long-term visionary bigger picture is going away from the technical or the business sort of related processes of a business, where you have experts, where you have consultants who can build you up. This is more going down what impact does the actual industry, and not only the individual company, the individual airline, but for the entire industry have on the economy of a region, of a city, of a country. That means we then also look at, I can give you an example, often when you look at infrastructure, it's been looked at ground infrastructure, it's been looked at ports, it's being looked at very, very big, large projects. But aviation is often being sort of neglected as the sort of self-running kind of business by governments. And we think, no, there is definitely a need also to put that awareness to society that aviation is highly regulated, and aviation needs to have some sort of support and input by governments. And that is not only for the individual company, but that is for the entire industry.
Yeah, the reason why I ask, because we work for a non-visa regime for as a country for Kyrgyzstan. And we were so surprised when we talk with different airlines, touristic agencies, and actually just 2 of them, they support us. Other companies, they were against it because it was like their personal interest to get like visa because they have more customers. So that's the reason why, how to identify sometimes when companies, they put their general interests bigger than their own interests.
Well, it depends. Obviously, a company will always look at their own interests. But then looking at the bigger picture and looking at developments already. We're looking here, for example, at the developments in ASEAN, and those developments have been ongoing so many, many times, and we're very much supporting the implementation framework on building ASEAN connectivity and growing. Of course, there will be always different interests. That means, yes, there will some be pros, some will be con, but if you look at, then that's where think tanks can come in at this sort of higher level of benefits to the consumer, choice. What can a more open market provide? Can it have a positive impact on safety? And what are the levers? That means what are the common denominators in the industry so that you can say, okay, this goes beyond the individual competition. This is where we can see sort of the benefits that come out.
I guess it also depends on the nature of the association or the chamber. You sometimes have them as a cartel of domestic players trying to block everybody else. And sometimes they're actually facilitators of business. And then it depends on the company. In this case, it's a private company entering a market of government players. So that's certainly a different difference when you talk to another type of airline. Talking about chambers, I see Linda is here. Linda, you remember that end of last year we were in DC and we spoke to that lady from the Mexican think tank who told us about the chambers in, I think it was Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. Would you share that? That's another interesting example of how that works in Mexico, that they go through the chambers and actually support think tanks through chambers.
I'm just searching back through my mind. Is this? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, she was really interesting because going to businesses, they don't always want to support you directly, but people in the Chamber of Commerce usually have some things in common with what you're trying to achieve. So they would have events where they would ask members of the Chambers of Commerce to come to. So they got to know the Chambers of Commerce, and it would be on different issues. And then at some point, I think they asked the Chamber of Commerce rather than the individuals, whether any of the individual companies would be interested in supporting this or that. So the companies would say, yes, they'd put $100 or $500 or whatever it was towards this project. And then the Chamber of Commerce would give the money to the organization. I mean, you obviously need a friendly Chamber of Commerce, but making friends with them is quite important, and I'm sure some of you do it. But it was interesting because it enabled the members to not be able to be identified for having supported a specific thing. And as you can imagine, in some countries, and anyway, members might be keen on a certain thing, but didn't particularly want their company to be associated with it. And obviously they'd found it very successful, really having a good relationship to the Chamber of Commerce, and then having different events for different members, and then seeing what they could put together, and they raised quite a lot of money from it.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And she was quite surprised to hear that other countries don't have that. For them, this was the most normal thing. So chambers have a certain group of think tanks that they support, and the money comes from the individual members of the chamber. Yes.
Maybe also to add to that, when a think tank is engaged or a study is engaged, it doesn't also mean that the outcome must be just pro for the individual company like ourselves. It just means that a debate and a discussion is being launched, which provides sort of a platform to actually build on that. So it doesn't, and that is, I think, the importance about the independence, is to say, this is not just coming from one angle or one side. This is actually an independent sort of study or an independent kind of visionary way forward, how that debate can then change certain steps and implement changing the mindsets.
Yeah, Manisha.
If I can just add to that, because we have had some experience working with the pharmaceutical sector, and we did some research for them, and I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes they also want a platform where their discussion at least takes place, because they were really frustrated that the government was not listening to them at all. So they didn't mind that even if the debate was like going this way or that way, there has to be some place that they can voice their concerns, and somebody like Prime, an independent think tank which had no bias in either way. So that platform definitely provides a bridge between the government and the private sector. So it's a win-win situation.
Right. No questions or comments at the moment. In a while, I will ask you who else has products and not just projects in their think tanks. Maybe some of you could help us by commenting on your own experiences. But before we go there, a question to Gulmira, because there is one. Oh, sorry, I can't see you. Yes, Nupur.
I just wanted to
Could you identify yourself quickly?
I'm Nupur Hasija from the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, New Delhi. Just wanted to share experience that we have in India. We have this CSR, corporate social responsibility, where all the companies are supposed to share 2% profit for the as a social responsibility. So there are many agencies that have come up in India who try to bridge between the corporates and the NGO sectors, because corporates wouldn't know, they don't know where to invest and who are the credible organizations. So instead of having a bogus social organization on their own, they would like to really invest on where work is really going on. So that's very much going on in India. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you, Nupur. Rings a bell here in Indonesia. There's a law. Every company has to spend, 2%, I think, of the profit on CSR, and lots of companies are at a loss, have no idea how to spend it, because they want to spend it on something useful for themselves, but they end up with doing some marketing exercises with hospitals and orphanages. So lots of things that can be done for them in the CSR sector. Ali?
Thank you. My name is Ali. So on the product and versus project approach, interesting panel there, because we have both pure business firms and also think tanks sitting. I was wondering how they would like to respond to it. My own assessment is that there is a fundamental difference between how, of course, think tanks and a business firm would operate. A business firm would be, whether it's a large firm such as AirAsia or a small retail store, they would have to have a long-term vision. And they would not be worrying about, let's say, short-term impacts. They would measure their result to success over a long-term horizon. They want to sustain and grow. In think tanks, from day one, we are trained to talk about like impacts which are related with projects which are necessarily short-term in nature, media impact or policy impact, and that may be introducing an inherent bias against a long-term approach in the think tanks. For your thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody wants to respond? Robin?
Well, I mean, my quick response to that would be, Ali, I mean, in addition to what you're saying, I do agree with you on that for businesses, the longer term is what matters, right? So primarily in the initial 5 years, we don't really even care if they're making profit or not, if they're, kind of building a good reputation. So I kind of agree with you on that. But then one fundamental difference I see between non-profit work and for-profit work is on a non-profit, it's very hard for us to figure out whether we made an impact or not. That's one of the most challenging things when wearing a think tank hat. So how do we measure it? And there are so many different ways of it. And sometimes, measuring our impact is much more expensive than the project itself. And it doesn't make sense to me. But at the for-profit, it's very simple. There is these stupid things called numbers. They are denominated. So either we are making a loss or we are making a profit. And that is our health check. Every year, every quarter, we look at the bottom of the statement, and that our health check. If we are not break even, making break even, or if we are not making profit, then we have to correct. So I think that is an advantage in doing business. We have an instant health check.
Yes.
If you can make a short-term impact straight away, we take that. So, but I think you have to be also realistic, and you have to have the mix between what is your vision as a think tank, what is your long-term objective, by also achieving sort of short-term intermediate goals to show some kind of, maybe not impact, but result or outcome. As I mentioned earlier, these days reports, if they're not being read, then what is the outcome of a long report which is being done over 12 months and no one is actually going to read that? Versus a study which is a 5-page study over 3 months, but you are able to distribute it on social media network and it gets actually publicity. So I think everyone has to find sort of that balance between what is really the long-term vision someone has versus what are the sort of intermediate steps of trying to create that impact and some visibility on results.
Let me get two voices first from there, and then we'll take it back to the panel. The Danana, I think, was first. Do we have a microphone here for the front? Danana and the gentleman at the same table. And Danu a little later.
What's the question to Robbie?
The easiest if you leave the microphones always on. Just don't switch them off.
Question is, when you have a non-for-profit and profit, have you met any experiences with conflict of interest? For an instance, you do you push for a policy on pharmaceutical, and someone also comes and do sort of a HR research or a data mining exercise on pharmaceutical. How do you manage those situations? Is my question. Just sharing an experience with Advocata. What we did was, rather than opening it for like a for-profit channel, we went for an agreement with an event company, a business magazine for events. So they outsource, it's a profit-sharing model where we organize the event. So we use our network to bring people, promote the event, and percentage is going to the business magazine, which will also build their reputation because they are not capable of managing events. And the other half will be contributed to Advocata. So that's one thing that we did. So rather than we are competing or before going for conflict of interest, we generally get a percentage based on the success of the event. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that has been profitable. That has brought in.
That has been so far profitable.
Okay, very well. Before you answer, we get the second question or comment. Could you kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah. This is Benu. I'm from India. I have a sort of a blended both questions and comments that why should think tanks exist? I think Edsels made a very good, point. Is it for something, for some sort of a transactional things? Or in my mind, it is, apparently, coming up, is it for transformative, some solution? What Tom was presenting, that when you have a question and you have a solution, then you come up with, a think tank like that. Because if you can get it done through the consultant or some other research body, there are a lot of, public sectors, research bodies, those who are also doing work. So finding a sort of a role space where I should, put my positioning, I should say that positioning the think tank amongst the different actors who are already operating in the national policy space, where I should, put my, and ISR made a very good point that, donors are giving money and then afterwards they get a report, but ultimately, who are your consumers? Who are your customers? Customers are here, but they are not paying anything. So what is the stake they are having it? So how I create a stake where I can recover the money, and that is what I was talking to Arvind. Money is not the problem. Corporate CSR, Nupur has correctly, I know all the corporate sectors in India because I was working with them in NABARD, private sectors, public sectors, community-based organization. Money is not the problem. They are looking for some sort of good solution. At the same time, think tanks are there. They should come up with certain good idea, transformative idea, which can make real transformative solutions where you can create a bigger constituency. So that's what I find that in many cases, if we do some sort of a retail, questioning and retail answer, perhaps, think tanks will not be very effective and efficient. So I would like to get your comments. What sort of a transformative solutions, when you are setting up a think tank, you would be looking forward from your own experiences?
Thank you very much. So that plays very much into the previous presentation by Tom Palmer, saying quite clearly, so who are we? So what is our product? How we are in the market? What's our position? What are we adding? What's the value that we're adding?
So, thank you, Sansi. Yeah, so the way I see it is that I don't think, if I think about Prime and Pakistan and our position there, I don't think we're there to provide any solutions. We're just there to basically bring out discussions, get people talking, make them aware about what are the possible solutions to the challenges and the problems that the government or the people are facing. So we don't necessarily give any solutions, but we give that platform, we give that bridge for the government sector and the policymakers to understand the common people and the common problems. So that nuisance value is created through the media and also through our op-eds, through our research. So this is where I see Prime, and this is how we work on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Robin.
Well, I quite agree with you, Benu, on your comment. I think we as think tanks have to clearly position on what we want to do. And I think each of us in our own little ways, we're trying to do that. And I think it's quite relevant what Tom was saying about our own viability and our own products. So so acknowledging your comment, I'll move on to Dhanaraj. Dana, who is actually asks a very interesting question and a very sensitive question, which I've been living for a lot of time in managing these businesses. I was not able to come to the challenge side of it, limitations of time, but there are definitely a lot of challenges in trying to manage these multiple organizations or companies. One of the biggest challenges, people will start looking at your face and getting confused. So who are you? Are you a think tank guy, or are you that company guy, or are you that data guy, or are you that? And so that's a big confusion. You start losing your identity, and you start sending wrong signals in the market, right? And so we have a process in place on that, and I'll be happy to talk about more on that. When it comes to conflict of interest, we have a process in place. We experienced it, and we have a process in place on how we resolve conflict of interest. More than the conflict of interest, when you have multi-companies that stem out of one company, there are issues of domain conflict, what we call. More than conflict of interest, it's domain conflicts. What I'm trying to say by that is, a company approaches me, a company approaches one company saying, would you do a research? But all three companies have different areas of doing research, right? And then all the business companies, they have a pressure on they have numbers that they have to meet at the end of the year. They have targets, right? And so they might be tempted to take up this research, which probably another company is supposed to be doing, right? And then that starts creating conflict of interest and what we call the domain conflict in our way. So we have a process on that, on domain conflicts. We have defined on who will take up what. So say, for example, wearing somebody the hat, if we get a request for a video, we exclusively get the videos produced only through Onion Films. If the Onion Films is not available, they will have to figure out who is going to produce. That's not our job. So that's how we settle it up.
So the answer is there's potential problems, but you need processes in place, and we can maybe go into that a little deeper later. Gulmira, you also had a question or a comment earlier.
Just for a previous question. That, being non-profit, it doesn't mean that you don't need money or you don't need to raise. For me, it's the main difference between for-profit and non-profit organizations. That for profit organizations, you measure your success with money. We measure our success with what reform we bring, what change we bring for a society. But it's all of these changes, we need money, and so we work as a we use model of a profit organization to promote our ideas. It doesn't mean that we are going for, we just don't divide our profit between owners or our workers. That's the reason when we talk about our identity. We always sell. We're simultaneous and difference between like consulting organizations. We promote. We have our values. We promote our vision. We work for our mission. And to achieve this mission, to achieve our vision, we need to work. We need to do some. We need to do some work for our sustainability. We can't depend, because we always say about independence is that we're non-profit. We don't have like other interests whom we work. But to save this independence, to be able to work for your mission, you need to make money to do it. That's why we always openly say that we have some commercial part. We do some research. We do research about we can do just to make it clear for everyone. So you can order as it's just a part of business, but it's just a small part. And just clarify not for others. First of all, you should clarify for yourself, because we also faced some 2 years ago when we just started to make some profit for our sustainability, that you can forget about your main goal, what you're doing. And we just clarified that just 20% of our income can come from our service which we provide, from our research, from like data and others. So just to clear for yourself, and then it will be for others.
Right. Thank you very much. Very interesting. So a clear 20/80 rule for that. Jürgen.
And maybe to add to these points here, I think everyone has to also realize every situation is a little bit different. Every region, every country is very different. You have to understand really the local environment. However, there are sort of certain topics within the industry which have a common theme. We just heard actually was very interesting about the CSR problem. It seems to be the same issue in India like in Indonesia, completely different mindsets. So I think in the aviation industry we have something similar. We are fully aware in their studies that sort of more open aviation market competition creates lower cost and creates better connectivity and so on. So those are the themes which then can be picked up, because those are the themes which can then actually be sort of approached from an independent point of view, from creating sort of the different stakeholders to come together and have an understanding how to find a solution.
And when it comes to money, it also has another dimension. Just yesterday, I spoke to a potential donor of us, and one of the first questions, in the middle of the conversation, the question was, so what is actually your annual budget? Because money also means how strong, how powerful you are. And it matters how big you are, because for some donors, you might be out if you have a too small a budget. So money actually does matter quite a bit. Yeah.
we talking about that we can get money just through research, but it's all other ways because we are not doing just research. We're doing advocacy campaign and different events. That's where you also can fundraise.
Sure, I mean participant fees, etc. But you have Gulmira, you have another interesting way of going about it, and that is when you are following the business people and help them in developing something in their own villages where they are from. Can you explain that a little bit?
Before, when I think all our countries face the same, that the nation culture of Western countries and Asian countries, they are different. And before we thought that it's a problem that people, they don't donate, but it's not true. In our countries they donate, but it's different, and we need to understand how they do it. When we use this guidelines that we are making proposal, we're writing and explaining all this bigger picture how it is, but it didn't work. And we changed our strategy, and we understood that in Kyrgyz culture, for example, they donate, but they donate for their own village, they donate for their own hometown. They don't think about whole country. So we identify these people, these businessmen, and now we're working. We raised, I think, $40,000 for one village for 3 types of projects: for decentralization, for entrepreneurship, and for education project of youth. Sometimes business, they don't donate by money, but they're just, for example, we have agreement. It's a total budget of 40,000, but it's not giving us with money. But they will cover all our costs, for example, to getting this village, our staying, our materials, and everything. So I'm totally agree what Tom said before. You don't need to for begging, because when we are meeting with businessmen and we are telling about it, what we are doing, and first question what I always hear, it's what do you want from me? And when you're saying, yeah, I want from you $5,000, $10,000 for this project, they're not very interested, because you're he already met 100 person who already asked for money. It's not only think tanks, it's they're surrounded by people who need money. And that's the reason why you need to show that they are interested. What do you want to do? So they started to tell about the stories, that village, that they want to grow their village, they want to make some impact for their community. And we came with solution what we can do for them. And we didn't ask for money, we didn't talk about project at first. We decided to go with them to their village and look at the situation there. Will they accept us? What we really can do for them. So we didn't use our prepared project to them. We did primary research. We identify what their needs. And we created project especially for this village and for this region. And now we're working with them. It's a project for next 2 years. And it's very interesting how it's raising it just for one village. But then they started talking, and we get interest from other regions as well. But they're waiting when our pilot project will run. And we decided not to make for all these regions, but finish with one village and then run to another. Because we have now proposals to give us money, but we need to make sure that we can handle it. Because we have also not just limited financial resources, but we also have limited human resources, which is more important. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Danu, Raj, you also wanted to ask or comment. Can we have a microphone to the table here, please?
Hello. Yeah. I'm Dhanu Raj from Center for Public Policy Research, India. This is not a question, the comment, sharing my experience in the last 14 years. I think a lot depends on, what's the value system that, we bring on the table as a non-profit organization, a pro-profit organization. And I see whenever I talk to our friends here, I think many of them are doing pro-profit, but they don't realize that they're doing a pro-profit thing. I don't find the difference between pro-profit and non-profit most of the times during the last 14 years. Especially in a country like India, I think the exemptions that you get, that's what many are behind non-profit idea. These exemptions are very much limited now. We don't have that many exemptions that were there 14, 15 years back. And today, I pay tax. At the same time, right against the government policy of taxation. That's two different things. I comply with the tax regulations in India. At the same time, I criticize tax regulations or tax system in India. That's one thing. Second, I believe, as an organization, you should decide on who could be your client, who could be your partner, who could be your funder, what kind of project you want to get into. And is it the money that attracts you to that project? Is the profile of the client that attracts you to the project? I think once you reach that level, you should be convinced about what you're doing. Why are you into this business? And I strongly believe we have a mission too. There's a mission that we have to attain. So in order to reach that mission, whether you get into a non-profit platform or pro-profit platform, I don't care. And third point I wish to share, is treat it as a startup company. I see so many budding think tanks here. I treat them as startup culture, startup companies. And when you set up a company, you have so many regulations, you have so many compliances that you have to go through, and you give them insights to what way we could do, how we overcome those challenges. So whether profit or non-profit, again, for me, at least in my personal level, I don't categorize whether they are profit or non-profit. And one question to Robin, I think it's also imperative. I think very important to take those decisions in terms of some companies are failing. Are we ready to admit and shut down those companies? Because I see in many, especially in corporate culture, they are not ready because it's a dream. It's a very fancy idea that they came up with. And after 2 years down the line, you realize that it is not working out the way you expected. But still, you're not reluctant to, shut it down. I've done it, some of the pro-profit thing. And looking back, I realized that they were the best decisions I had. And the other point I see, when we started 15 years, 14 years back, I think the consensus on the board was that we are here to we are here to stay. No matter what happens, no matter who is going to support you, who is not going to support you, what kind of projects you are going to get into. But the thing is, we want to get into the reform agenda. We want to promote the liberal agenda. So I think that value that from the day first, what we incorporated in our operations, I think that really helped us a lot. I see many organizations in India, they're scared of being admitted to admit that they are pro-profit. And pro-profit platforms also widens your platforms, extends your platforms in terms of you could work with consulting companies. You could also build larger network. You meet more HNIs there. You could also the differentiation. I think we many times we fail to understand what product we are promoting. For us, we are very clear. We are a team of researchers promoting liberal agenda, the liberal market agenda. Those who are into activism and all, I'm not so sure whether the pro-profit angle will help them in activism. But so the product segmentation is very important in terms of how do we position ourselves in the larger market. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lanu. We've been having this conversation about company models. I want to reiterate that Tanu in addition to CPPR, Thanu has been operating a consulting company, and it's been a wonderful model. We continue to discuss this around. We also have a gentleman called by the name of Aniket Dugar here in the room. Aniket, are you around somewhere here? Oh yeah, so behind around the T area. Aniket has a startup, I would say. It has a company that's 2 years young, and they have about 80 full-time staff and 5,000 female members who work on their company on a commission basis, and it's a social cause-driven company called Hak Darsak. And it's very interesting, the service that they're providing, and you know, it's pretty much like the non-profit work that they're doing, but then they have a solid revenue model around it, whereby the 3,000 women volunteers that work with them are able to, you know, help villagers for a small fee and send back a small portion of it to Aniket's company. So I wanted to mention this because a lot of us sitting in this room have been experimenting with, you know, private businesses or you know, profit model or whatever we would like to call it. But then at the same time, there is no doubt that it is about taking risks, and not all companies succeed. And I've been a part of several companies, and probably 50 companies by now, and many of them have died. But then what really happens is, you know, for us who try to make a case for market, right, for market and private enterprises and private businesses, you know, if we have had some experience with private businesses, it adds on to the rigor of the discussion, where we can always talk from first-hand experience. You know, when I go to policymaker, I can tell them what a sit time I went through when I was 16 and was trying to register a tea estate. It took me 7 months. So that experience is going to be of quite use for us who are making case for the private market. But then also, you know, the failure part, which even in the last few years, out of the several companies I told you, there are a few companies I didn't mention that we had to close down because what we thought was true wasn't true when we tested the waters. And but then all in all, doing these you know, small companies is always rewarding. And even if there is a failure, I mean, the lessons that it brings to us, the rational human it develops us into, the logical person it makes you become, and the humility it teaches you is really rewarding, not the money.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Yep, you want to share?
Maybe to add one more point, because there was a discussion around funding and values. I think, yes, funding is important, but also from the private sector, it's always important that a think tank provides this thought leadership, this independency, and has that value towards society as well. Has that pillar. So I think that is also a very important notion, that there is this component of leadership, there is this component of progression, whatever the agenda might be. It could be liberalism, and that should be kept independent, and that should be sort of also one of the mindsets around the value of think tank. Otherwise, think tanks become shark tanks, and
we've had that already. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. If I may add here something, there's actually also another way of starting a think tank, and that's the other way around. You don't go first with a think tank and then you think about how to start a company to help with the finances, but you can actually start with the company first and then think about the think tank. That's actually something that might be helpful. Is that the way you've done it, Danu? Yeah, it's the way I have done it as well. To start with the company first helps in the sense that you become very sensitive to the market. You get much more customer oriented because you have to, it's your survival. You become focused on your product, the quality of your product. So there's a couple of lessons that you learn, and you make a little bit of money that you need when you initiate the think tank, because you have to start from somewhere. So that's something, I know some in the room here are in the process of starting. So that's actually something that's quite helpful in the founding phase of a think tank, worth to consider. I would like to give one last round to all of the 4 panelists. If there's something that you still want to share after we've gone through these discussions here, final word of advice to the think tank leaders here, things you tried that did work, things you tried that didn't work, things that we haven't spoken about yet, something you would like to add. Ayesha, you want to get started?
Yeah. So although I don't have a lot of experience in think tank world right now, but I would just like to share that going through the project way is much simpler and easier, and you have these direct outputs, and you have to, of course, creating an impact is not that easy, but generally that's the approach that most of the startups take. But I think if you have the capacity, we should go with products, because products really help us align our mission, and they help us achieving our overall goal, and they are the right key towards sustainability. So if we have the capacity, we should go for products and achieve more sustainability in that way. Yeah.
Thank you. And my only request is, like I was telling earlier, I'd like to urge all our think tank leaders here to, if you're not a part of profit-making private business, there is no harm in trying one. And if you don't want to try, you could invest in someone who is trying to open a new business. Honestly, it's a very good thing to do, because the only industry that makes real wealth is the private businesses. So I really feel it's the best and the most moral way of making money, and therefore I think we should experience a little bit of it without being scared of failure. Like I said, it has a lot of lessons. Also, on a different note, I think for all of us, I just wanted to make a proposal that there are several companies or private for-profit initiatives that are also promoting the ideas, maybe in Asia as well. And we get to meet very less of them here during the conferences. It would actually be it would be great if we could meet more of them and actually have panels to understand how they are doing their everyday business, but at the same time also contributing to promoting ideas, because we have a lot of them. Examples are there are friends in Bhutan like UED. They used to be in the conference this year. I don't see them. But then some exchange of ideas focused on how they've been surviving themselves on a revenue model vis-a-vis promoting idea, because it has to be a unique combination in doing that. So that's another thing that might be of use for all of us. This kind of a proposal. Otherwise, I'd really thank you for your time listening to us. But more than that, thank you for being pro-business and loving money. I love it too.
Yeah, thank you, Lumira.
So one more thing, it's working with board. With my organization, I still have a problem with them, because sometimes you can, for you will be easier if your board will work more on fundraising than you. So you can focus more on your products, what you do, and promote. That's why we're trying to work more with our board to make sure that it will be their mostly responsibility to bring money to work, because it's not necessarily totally agreed to go for commercial part, because we are our main ideas it's work for our mission to promote values. And also it's not only about research, or your event can be low cost, or you can make it not for free with some fees, and make that event pay for so just for example, before we made a project which cost $20,000, $10,000, but the result was great. But then we understand the people who participated on this event, they can pay for this, and for them paid $20 per event. It's not a big deal. So they have opportunity and they're ready to pay. So that's why our budget, it's not that big as it was before, but most of our events, they work for, how would say? So we don't need we customize them, so they have fees, and this event can be for, I'm sorry, what is word?
Raising some money through these.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And I think a summary, two important points which we mentioned were think tanks can be bridges, can be facilitators among various stakeholders. I think that's very important. Always remember think tanks should be thought leaders and leaders, which we very much support as well. And lastly, especially now for this region, for Indonesia or even for ASEAN, we at Asia treat ourselves as ASEAN company, as ASEAN airline. We see a lot of fragmented activities. It would be actually also a very opportunistic and great view to have a more collaborative approach from different think tanks or research institutions across the region to provide that higher level message.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, this concludes this session. We have had a discussion about very technical topics. These are, I believe, crucial to all our think tanks. We need to be as innovative as we can be, looking at our context, looking at our specific situation, where we are and who we are. We need to be clear about our values, our principles. We need to be clear about our products. And we need to see how to operate. Are we actually not for profit, or are we for profit? What is it that we're really doing? And I think that was a very good conversation. I would like to give very special thanks to the Acton Institute that has donated generously to make this panel here possible. Unfortunately, Lee Schooland is out at the moment, I think. Or is Lee here at the moment? No, but she's representing the Acton Institute here because Chris Mauren, unfortunately, last minute had to be on the jury in a court in the States, still had to do that duty and was not able to travel overseas. So otherwise he would have been here. But we are very grateful for that support. We are also very grateful for the 4 panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your ideas. And with this, I'm handing over to our Master of Ceremonies. Thank you very much. We're taking a photo?
Yes.